My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Better Call Saul Season 5, and this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, and then come back and watch this review, because I will be going in depth. Now, this is the season that I've heard everyone loved. This is the season. This show gets on the same level as Breaking Bad. So I went in with high expectations, and I have to say, I liked it. I was entertained while watching it, but I wouldn't call it great. It's perfectly fine. I do like Jimmy's storyline of how he's Saul Goodman now, and he's back at being a lawyer, doing better than he ever has before, and he's working with the biggest scumbags of people. And Kim wants Saul to help her out with this situation regarding this guy named Aiko who won't leave his house, and the bank is going to force him out. So she wants him to defend that guy. And it results in this hilarious montage that really cracked me up. But the direction it ended up going from that point forward just left me very mixed. Kimmy decides to back out. We did our best. We're getting him a bit more money. That's the most we can do. And Jimmy's like, okay, I'll stop. But then in typical Jimmy fashion, he doesn't. And he shoots this commercial against Macy Verde. And he also definitely does blackmail Kevin. And Kim gets furious with him, understandably, because he makes her look really bad. But at the same time, Kim knows exactly who Jimmy is. And she introduced this idea to him and then backed out last second. Now, I'm not defending Jimmy, he's still in the wrong, but I'm just saying that you can't be mad when she was willing to go 100% and she pushed him to do 100% and then expected him to go 0% just like that. Like, she knows him better than that. So she really should have seen this coming. And then on top of that, what Jimmy ends up accomplishing isn't much. He gets Kevin to apologize and to pay this random girl that was never mentioned before $200,000 because her photograph is the logo for Macy Verde. So none of that worked for me. And then Kevin ended up paying the guy $45,000, which he was going to pay him anyways. So what was really accomplished? And I know this plot was there to progress Kim's and Jimmy's relationship, but I don't think it really did. Like, the fact that they completely undersell the wedding and just treat it like absolutely nothing, and then it just goes back to the way it always was, I don't think it added anything. There's a moment where you think they're going to break up, and that would have been really emotional, but they don't go that path. They keep them together, they get married, where you really feel nothing because it's so underwhelming, and then it's not until later on that the relationship starts evolving. So I really don't think this whole storyline evolved them and their relationship all too well. And I kind of wish they dug a bit more into Kevin because they're trying to find dirt on him and they can't. He seems like an actual good guy. He's all objectivity and little heart, which reminds me of Chuck, and I wish they kind of leaned into that a bit more. So almost everything in the first 6 episodes is completely filler, and then we get this situation where Jimmy has to defend Lalo, and he succeeds. He has to pick up his bail of $7 million, and I do think the last 3 episodes in this season are the best in this season. You know, when Jimmy goes to pick up the money, and then he almost gets killed by the gang, and Mike comes in and saves him. That entire moment has weight because Jimmy really hasn't been in a situation like that. Like, he's been beaten up and kicked while he's down, but a gun pointed to his head, you can just see the change in him afterwards. And you understand it because this moment has weight. And not just that, the fact that he sees Mike kill all these people, that affects him too. Then he gets lost in the desert. He has to drink his own pee. He's shaken up afterwards. And it doesn't help the fact that he thinks that he got Kim involved with the cartel. And that one scene with Lalo and Kim and Jimmy is really effective. You know, it's one of the more tense scenes of the show. And I do like Kim's storyline this season too, how she doesn't want to do cons anymore. She wants to help people and she's trying to be better, and she's just in a situation where she can't do that. You know, that one scene of her yelling at Aiko was well written and she was correct, but you can just tell that she doesn't like the kind of person she's becoming. So that's why she gets Jimmy to do it. And she's just trying everything in her power to not be the bad guy. And I do love the fact that after the whole Bagman incident, you can just see how much she cares for Jimmy. You can see her fear and her panic that he might actually be dead. So I like all that. And I saw it when Howard was trying to tell her what Jimmy did to him, and she just laughs it off. Was a really funny moment. Like, Howard's right to be concerned, but at this point, they've just survived an outing with the cartel, so Howard's bowling ball problems just really aren't that big to them. And at the end of this season, I do love the direction they're taking Kim. In fact, I think it's absolutely brilliant how she's becoming more like Jimmy. You know, as Jimmy's trying to become a better person, he ended up bringing her down to his level. I really do love that idea, but the fact is, it just feels really jarring. You know, if the progression of her character this season is we see her doing more and more things just like Jimmy, and then in the end we get that payoff, it would have been all the more effective, but it kind of all happened within like a 10-minute span. So I don't think that really worked out too well for me, and I do like their relationship. It's a big part of this season. You know, I like that one scene where Kim is frustrated and she starts throwing beer bottles off the roof and Jimmy joins her. And the next morning they see the mess they made and Jimmy's just like, someone else will clean it up. But then Kim takes out a broom and dustpan and she cleans it all up. It tells you a lot about who they are as characters. Jimmy leaves his messes to be cleaned up by everyone else while Kim takes the initiative. That's some really smart writing. And they have some really funny moments together. You know, that one scene where they're impersonating Kevin and Jimmy's impersonating Kim, I thought was really funny. And the whole Aiko and Kevin situation, like I said, I don't think it did enough for their relationship. You know, when Jimmy does think she's breaking up with him, you can see his entire world fall apart. And I'm sure it's coming in season 6, but I kind of wish they dedicated themselves to it in that moment. And like I already said, I know their wedding is underwhelming and it's by design, but I still found it to be underwhelming. And I do like the fact that Jimmy is trying to tell her everything and how that comes into play. And when he does eventually tell her about the cartel, and she's just like, you know what, I'm glad you told me. I thought that was a really pure moment between the two of them. And like I said, you feel the weight of everything with Jimmy and Bagman. The fact that he knows that she thinks he's dead and he's trying so hard to call her and she's worried sick. It's some of the most emotion I felt while watching this show. And when he does eventually succeed and he calls her and he tells her that he's okay, you can just see that they have a genuine love for each other. And their reaction afterwards tells you a lot about their characters at this point. Jimmy's doing more self-reflecting. He asks Kim at a point, am I bad for you? And like I said, the idea of Kim getting worse is interesting. I just wish it was explored more. Especially because Jimmy needs Kim the way she is. She needs to be his moral compass because without her, he would just lose himself. Then we've got Mike's storyline where he's dealing with the aftermath of Ziegler, and I don't care. I just don't. I know it should be this huge moment. It's the first time Mike killed someone in the show, and it was a guy who doesn't deserve it, but I just thought the build up to that moment was so weak that I just didn't really care. And I do still love this character, but the plot is just so disconnected, and I have zero emotional investment in it. There's just no weight behind it. You know, I do like that one scene how he's reminded of Maddie and he can see that Maddie would be disappointed in him, but you don't really feel the presence of Maddie all too much, so it doesn't have much impact. And I like it when Mike's with Jimmy. It feels like he's adding something there, but the two or Billy together. I like it when they're together because they're so different and the contrast between each other really balances it out. But I need more of that. Then we've got Nacho's plot, who I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot to mention in my review of season 4. And I know lots of people love his character. And I think Mike Amanda does a perfectly fine job. It's just not a compelling character that I'm emotionally invested in. Like the whole idea that he's forced to work for Gus, otherwise his dad will die, should just hit me in the feels, but I just feel nothing. There's moments of greatness with Nacho, but I always want to go back to Jimmy's storyline. Like, I do like the one scene where he breaks into that one place that the DEA is infiltrating to impress Lalo to gain his trust. And I do love the whole aspect of him being an inside man, but it just never really grabs me. If I was actually invested in his relationship with his dad, then I would be more invested in what could happen to him. If I actually cared about his partnership / friendship with Lalo, I would be more emotionally invested in the fact that he's betraying him, and I just get nothing there. Now that said, Lalo's still a phenomenal character. He's great, he's fantastic, he steals every scene he's in. Like, one of my favorite characters of the show, without a doubt. But I still feel like Jimmy's plot and the cartel's plot is still totally disconnected. Like, for a little bit there, Jimmy wanders into the cartel plot for a little bit, and we see how that changes him, but then by the end it feels all disconnected again. You know, it's like these two straight lines, and there was a moment where they crossed over, but it's passed and now they're separate again. You know, and it doesn't help the fact that the final 3 episodes feel important, but everything beforehand regarding Jimmy just feels unneeded. Like, I truly believe if there was no knowledge of Breaking Bad and this show only existed as it is, every single person would be asking, what's the point of Mike being here? What's the point of Gus? What's the point of Nacho? Because it just, I don't think it adds anything. I love the characters, but just, I've been waiting 5 seasons. Maybe it all comes together in the last season, and I'm like, they did a great job with it. But even if they do that, there's no justification for 5 seasons in for these two storylines to be so separate for each other. You know, I loved Stranger Things Season 4, and I loved the Russian plot, and I loved the Vecna plot. They try to connect the two at the very end that I don't think was needed, but the thing is that show was big and epic and ambitious, and they gave you a globe-trotting adventure along with a horror story, and I just think they complemented each other very well. But here, it just feels like 2 completely different shows. But let's begin talking about the performances, and Bob Odenkirk is once again great. I don't know what else I can say about him here that I haven't already, but he's great. I think Rhea Seehorn is really great. You just see her frustrations when she wants to do pro bono all day, and they get her to do Mesa Verde again. And I love the pew pew at the end. That was really well delivered. Giancarlo Esposito is good, but given nothing to do. Patrick Fabian as Howard, this is the character that I feel really bad for. Like, he truly feels regret about the way he treated Jimmy. And how spineless he was, and how he wants to make things right, only for Jimmy to be a complete prick in return, and just ignore him, and then destroy his car, and try to ruin his reputation. You know, you really do feel awful for him, because I legitimately believe that he is one of the good characters in this show. Like, not good as in well written, but like actual good. Jonathan Banks does a good job with the material he's given. Tony Dalton is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if he was nominated or not for a bunch of Emmys, but he should have been. He's so charismatic and likable. Like, he's an evil scumbag, but you can't help but love him. He's just such a delightful presence. And just some of the way he delivers his dialogue is absolutely pitch perfect. Like, when Jimmy's just like, oh, I don't have time to do this. And he's just like, that's okay. You'll make time. It's great. I love it. Mike Amando is good. I just don't think his character is one that I latch on to. I do think one issue I have with this season is that it has some prequel flaws. Like back in season 4, I didn't mention it, but we see Gale for just one scene, and it does feel fan servicey. And then in this season, we get Hank, and I love Hank. Dean Norris is a great actor, but he's just so unneeded here. He doesn't really add much. Like, it does make sense because, you know, he's a DEA agent, the cartel and all that. I get all of it. But just the use of him makes him feel irrelevant, and because we do know him, it just feels fan servicey. And his chasing was so boring. That was actually a very poorly directed scene. But anyways, some other positives I do have is I think this season was pretty funny. There's that one scene where Jimmy's defending that one guy, but it turns out he's in the audience, and that cracked me up. There's one line by a dude who says, 50% off? That's almost half off. That was really funny. And the commercial Jimmy shoots was hilarious. Like the one line, my bank is funding terrorism, cracked me up. And I do have to mention once again, this show is just so incredibly well shot. It looks incredible. But look, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I didn't love this season. It's not one of my favorites. Season 2 and 3 still stand supreme. It's enjoyable, the performances are great, and the characters do have a level of complexity to them that I just don't feel is getting explored to the fullest extent that they deserve. You know, the best shows and movies and just stories come from when the story directly impacts the characters. And just seeing that so much of what happens feel irrelevant, it just does the characters a disservice. You know, no matter how hard they try, everything just feels so disconnected, and it doesn't feel like it's building towards anything. It just feels like I'm watching things happen in one episode and then watching things happen in the next episode, and the connective tissue just isn't as strong as it should be. You know, if you're going to be a serialized show, then be serialized, but it kind of has an episodic approach in some ways, and it just doesn't work for me. There's a total disconnect. So it's still well made, it's still well acted, it still has some great moments, but as a whole, it does feel lacking in certain areas. So I'm going to go ahead and give Better Call Saul Season 5 a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, have you seen Better Call Saul Season 5? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.